I want to talk about a couple of examples of what I meant, but it's not just enough to live in nature. You have to be about nature. You have to be of nature. And I talked about how, the Bible says be in the world, but not of the world. Okay? And I think what it is that, and I'm going to say this real quick, and this is not to hate on anybody who does live in nature. I do notice some people who live in nature, and I do mean some, not all. It's almost like they're bragging on the fact that some people don't live in nature. It's almost like they're bragging on the fact that they have these gardens, that they have all this space, that they have such a beautiful scenery with trees and plants around them. And when I say bragging, I don't mean in the way that they feel good and they're happy about where they are and they're proud. I don't mean like that. It's nothing wrong with being happy and proud of where you are, and not like that. I noticed some of the attitudes that some of them have when they're uploading YouTube videos, almost as if putting down people who might not be in the type of situation that they are in. But let me say something. That is a person that is not of nature. If you were of nature, why do you care so much about what other people are doing? See, this is how I know the mind is not of nature. True enough, they probably do good with planting some plants and growing some food in their garden. True enough, they can do that. True enough, they probably know how to build stuff. They know how to, because when you in the country, I grew up in the country. I grew up in Tuskegee. So a lot of people say they live in nature, but I grew up in the country. I was born in Montgomery, but I was raised in the country. Literally raised in the country. I didn't even have a number address. It wasn't until I was my later years in high school that I had to go figure out the number to the address of my house. That's how much we didn't even have neighbors. I grew up in the country. That does not make you about nature, just living there. It has to be something that's in your heart. It's people who you can be about nature and live in the city because the supreme being that is nature understands that everybody just can't get up and move like that with the type of situation that people are in. But if you have a chance to, and Spirit says to do it, it's probably best to go on and get on out because of the group consciousness kind of holds you. It's really hard to break through it, a group consciousness, because right now they're trying to hijack. Well, they already hijacked it, but they're trying to cap everything. They're trying to cap everybody. So it's best if you have a chance to. So it won't be harder and you have to work hard and hard and hard. It'll be less work to get out of an area where it's a group consciousness where they go along with any old, with anything that's thrown out there, any old agenda, right? And that tends to happen a lot in the city. It's like a lot of people don't seem to just really think for themselves. They seem to even the ones that do know how to think for themselves, because you have a large majority that goes along with the get along, they're going to do it too. And you're just like one of the maybe 10 left that know, that don't want to go along with it. But there's so many that did. It's hard to rise up in your consciousness and rise up in your mind because of a group consciousness, and it's already been a cloud that's placed around them, placed in that area. And so the one person who's trying to rise up, it's going to be hard for them. I can see that being a whole point of getting out of the city and getting into nature more. I see that as a good reason. But what I was going to say about an example of being in nature and not of nature, because I've seen people who live in nature, who live in look like a peaceful area. Some people, they do this because it's kind of like, currently it's just it's kind of like, I'll call it their vocation. It's not necessarily, I don't want to call it their job. I'll say it's kind of like their vocation. Even though they might get donations and stuff, it's their vocation. And with this example, they have a loyalty to the people, and people have questions. They have a loyalty to giving information to people about what's going on around the world, because that's how they started their channel. Okay, that's kind of how they started their channel, and right now they just they still have to kind of be in the world to see what's going on, to give information back. And see, when you have to do that, that's kind of like doing meditations 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and then you turn around and have to go work a job for 8 hours in a hostile environment. It's like 1 minute you're working on yourself, clearing out your mind and all that stuff, and then you go back to a hostile environment and you have to do all kind of tons of work to put up a shield to make sure that you don't get penetrated by so much negativity. And so much negativity that's aimed at you. You have to work hard and hard to put up a shield and then cleanse yourself. Then you got to turn around and cleanse yourself. Now, it might not be to that degree, but having to kind of work when you don't really have to, because you have a loyalty to the people. So you have to go and look at what's going on in the news, what's going on in the media, what's going on in Twitter, what's going on in Facebook, what's going on in Instagram and YouTube. And look at, it's like, okay, so there's a part of you that, yeah, true enough, you live in nature and you're telling everybody else to get out the city and get in nature. You're telling everybody else to get out of Babylon. But for me, Babylon has always been about the mind and not of what you would call a physical location. To me, Babylon has always been about the mind. Now, physical location is good to get out of Babylon with a physical location if something is going on to kind of maybe avoid it. But other than that, Babylon to me is about the heart. That's what Babylon to me is about. It's about the heart. And to me, this person that lives in nature, granted they want to be loyal to the people, their subscribers, because that's how she started her channel. But at the same time, she spends a good portion of her time looking at what's going on in Babylon. She spends more time looking at what's going on in Babylon more than people who actually live in Babylon. Because Babylon is not just the United States of America. Babylon is not just the UK. Babylon is not just Canada. Babylon is also Africa. Babylon is everywhere. People like to make it seem like it's just in the West, but Babylon is everywhere. Okay. But so, she has to spend more of her time being about Babylon's business more than people who actually live in Babylon. And so that's almost like is defeating the purpose of nature, because but in this case, I think she is about nature, but she has to do a certain she has a certain loyalty to an audience, okay? But then I want to bring up another example of a person who don't have to do that, because this is not her channel has never been about politics. And this is another person who's in the United States of America who lives in nature, kind of a religious person. But every single day, I haven't looked at her channel in a long time because I'm not on my Divine Beingness channel, so I haven't seen anybody's uploads. But it seemed like every day I would see like titles of her videos from her channel about crazy stuff that's going on, not just politics. Okay, you talking about politics? Okay, some people like to talk about politics, like they act like that's such a high vibration. You might as well talk about murders all day. And this is exactly what she did. She talked about families throwing knives and killing each other. She uploaded articles like that talking about it's getting crazy out there. It's getting crazy where? When you're about nature, that don't affect you. That doesn't affect you when you're about nature. And talk about this everything, just whatever you can think of, that's what she brings up. That's whatever article she brings up. She brings up articles all about the crisis, economic crisis. That's fine, bringing up all kinds of articles. And when you are of nature, you are getting more into a state of non-duality. When you are really, really about nature, you're getting more into a state of non-duality. When I was in India for those 3 months I was there, 2.5 months. For the first 2 weeks I was there, the first 2 to 3 weeks I was there, I kept having dreams of United States of America. But see, I had a problem that I kept having dreams about the United States of America. I didn't like that. So why do I keep having dreams about United States of America? And it's not even necessarily people that I know. I just know that it's still a different astral world in the United States of America. I was like, I don't want to have these kind of dreams anymore. So I started, maybe about a week later, I started having a lot of dreams. All of my dreams was about being in India. It was all about India. Okay, because that's where I want my heart to be, and not necessarily in the city part of India, the country, the nature. And then I got to a point where I couldn't even talk about anything that was going on in the United States because my heart was completely removed from United States of America. Like, United States of America wasn't even in my heart anymore. Like, it was gone. I couldn't talk about nothing. Whoever was talking about what, I could not talk about it. I mean, my dreams none of my dreams anymore had anything to do with me, life in the United States. All of my dreams was in India. All of my dreams was in India. In the country too, not the city. Excuse me. So I say that to say that being in the country, being in nature does not equate to being of nature. So I say that to say not to necessarily feel bad when you hear me say that nature is a supreme being. Nature is the answer. Hi there. Hello. Yeah, I say nature is the answer. Because I say to be of nature. Because there's a lot of people that live in nature that is they're still not rising up to a frequency of non-duality. And they've been living in nature for 20 years, and they still have not risen up to a frequency of non-duality. Now, why is that? How can somebody do that? Well, I was born and raised in Tuskegee, Alabama. I grew up in the country. Okay? But they're not in the frequency. Number one, because they got family members that don't even understand that. That's number one. And it might not be in their mind either. So if you don't even have the mindset to be aware of such a thing, then it's hard to rise up. But then you're around family that could be like religious. So now you're living nature, but you have a religious mindset. You're holding on to religious doctrine. So that's what I'm talking about. Be of nature. Being one with nature has nothing to do with the religion. Being one with nature has nothing to do with the religion. So when you hold on to religion and hold on to all this other stuff, the only laws you might need to know are the laws. Excuse me, I'm making noise with all these papers. The only laws you need to know might be the laws of the real nature, not this digital. You hear me break through some plastic here. Not the laws of this digital nature that they might have twisted. Because they're not going to give you the laws of the real nature, because if they do that, then you'll be free from this simulation. They're not going to give you the actual laws of the real nature. So I haven't memorized all these laws that people have memorized. I haven't gotten into them because I feel like the people who are controlling information wouldn't let anything like that be free. And I already made a previous upload about how the Nazis are in control. And I knew that anyway from being on somebody else's channel. He said that. He said that. I heard him say that 2 years ago. He said it. And now I happen to see that symbol with my eyes closed. Excuse me, guys. I happen to see that symbol with my eyes closed. And it just confirmed what I heard from him. The Nazis are running the show. The Nazis are controlling China. The Nazis are controlling the United States. The Nazis are controlling everything. It's the Nazis. What they look like is not necessarily what you think they look like. Just wanting to say they white, that's not necessarily it, because I heard about the Nazis. They had connections with other extraterrestrials. So it's not about a type of a human look. Okay? But and the Nazis got permission to use a lot of people, certain people, as guinea pigs. They got the permission from these extraterrestrials. That's why a lot of them get away with what they do to people, because they've gotten permission with a lot of these extraterrestrials, if you want to call them extraterrestrials, to do these things that run the world. They got permission to do it, and so that's why they never get in trouble. because they are not bound by the laws that the sheep, the cattle, are held to. They're not held to such laws, and so they don't get in trouble. If I was to do things like that to somebody, I would get in trouble. They're not going to get in trouble because they're not held to the same laws. They got permission from the actual extraterrestrial rulers to do all that testing on people and to do what they do to kill all those people. And they don't get in trouble. And that's why some people don't believe in karma, because karma is not for them. The laws of karma in this particular digital type of universe was meant for other people who have not, I say, elevated to a certain point, who don't have access to certain information to know better. But I want to finish on saying this, because I started off talking about being in nature. Some people can live in nature, but they're not of nature. And those are the two examples that I thought of. One example is a lady, she's a political person. And that's kind of how she started her channel, so she tried to stay loyal to her fan base. And plus, they donate her. They're very generous to her with their donations. And so she tries to stay loyal to her fan base. But I do believe that she is of nature. I do believe. But I believe her loyalty to her fan base is actually making her a bit of a sacrifice. Because, like I said, even though she doesn't have to clock in for 8 hours and be in a hostile environment, which everybody who goes to work for 8 hours is not necessarily in a hostile environment. But I just want to say that just because she doesn't have to clock in and go somewhere 8 hours a day and be in a hostile environment does not mean that she is spiritually hurting herself by having to put her mind on politics, constantly put her mind on duality, talking about revolutionary voices, putting her mind on duality. The only revolution is to detach from it. The biggest revolution is to detach from the world. Get your mind away from the world. That's the ultimate revolution. Okay? But, so that to me, that's a sacrifice for her to have to put her attention on politics and talk about what's going on around the world. But this other lady, she doesn't necessarily, she doesn't have a political channel like that. Really, her channel is kind of religious. But she uploads a lot of articles about other, I guess the atmosphere is changing. I moved into a new city. And so this is their fault, and I'm not used to their kind of atmosphere, I guess. So it's kind of bothering me a little bit. But anyway, and then when I start talking for a long time like this, then it kind of bothers my sinuses when I start talking for a long time. But anyway, the other lady, she has more of a religious channel. Okay, she has a religious channel. She often uploaded, I don't know about now, but before she often uploaded just anything that she could upload. Any type of news that she can upload, whether it's about your killing or anything else that's going on. I am so sorry to keep sneezing. It's the more I'm talking, the more my nose is getting irritated. I sure hope I don't sound crazy. I don't want to not upload this video, but I'm done talking. I just wanted to say that, yeah. The nature is, it has to do with the heart. Oneness has to do with the heart and not necessarily living there. Moving there is for the reason of having more freedom and being more self-sufficient, being less dependent on the system, being more self-sufficient, and just having a less of a group consciousness in that area. Okay? But other than that, It's not going to necessarily get you to oneness if you don't already have that kind of mentality of oneness. If you don't already have that kind of mentality of oneness, it's not going to live in there. It's not going to necessarily get you there because it's all about what's in the heart. And that's all I got to say. I'll talk later.